Kevin.
What's going on, everybody? We're just going to do a quick product update, right? Company product update. We want to start doing this every quarter for everybody to kind of know what's going on behind the scenes at Spectora, what's going on with the product, NextGen. There's so much going on. And we both found this helpful and said we wanted to do this because sometimes customers don't know what's going on, or they think we're not working on their feature or paying attention to the right things. So I think it's good for us just to talk and shoot the shit every quarter and maybe more and just update everybody. So thanks for jumping on.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. It's really cool to be able to talk to everyone, give the users updates. I think we do so much behind the scenes and we can think it's so clear, but for someone else, obviously it can look a little mysterious. So we want to make sure we're being super transparent, letting people know what's going on.
100%. And inspectors always told me this back in the day. They were like, you cannot communicate with us enough. And every time we're like, we know, we'll do better. We'll keep doing better. And so this is an effort at that. So let's dive in. What do you want to start with in terms of updates, whether it's last quarter or next quarter? I know you got a hit list of things we can chat about.
Yeah, we can start just kind of going over the stuff we did last quarter, what you can kind of look for in terms of features, or some things that you might have missed, some things that went out more quietly and some things that are coming up soon. So we can kind of go over those.
Right on. Yeah. And for context, quick company update. We're at 41 team members now. The dev and product teams have about how many combined?
There are 7 developers, including our head of development. And then we have 4 product managers, including our head of product. So just a little bit where we have some people doing work, some people managing other people doing work, but it's a lot bigger than last year when it was literally just me and James, who's our head of product, just on a meeting trying to figure out what's going on. So a ton of changes have happened since that.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's important for everyone to know, while that is a huge increase in developers and product people, the product's also grown. Number of users has grown over, I think, around 8,000 now. So the complexities just grow, and it's hard to right size how many people we should have to work on, all the initiatives we have. So it's constantly trying to right size. And so all that to say, I just like people knowing how many actual people we have, because some might think we have 40 developers and they're like, why isn't NextGen done like yesterday? And so it's good to put in context that 7 is a lot, but it's also not a lot.
Yeah, we've kind of treated it. So we've moved to the structure that we call pods. Basically, it's the idea that we can work on multiple initiatives at once in unison without potentially taking away from each other. So instead of us all having one focus that we're let's all develop this feature, it'd be way too many cooks in the kitchen. It allows us to move quicker, iterate faster, and have one point of responsibility on a feature. So we can work on a bunch of different things, like maybe someone's working on recommending contractors like last quarter. Someone else is working on some internal business development stuff that we need for our company. Someone else, like I've been working on core, happiness, NextGen, things like that. So we can really move on multiple initiatives and move kind of like a startup in these really small teams of 1 PM and then a couple developers to really work on these initiatives quickly.
So we have, you mentioned core happiness pod. So it's worth noting that we do have a couple developers, a product manager that's literally just focused on the core platform and building features that make inspectors happy, right? Can you talk a little about kind of that pod? Because I think it's important to know that while we're working on these new and other things, there are people, their everyday focus is keep the platform humming and going, right?
Yeah, so it's actually, fun fact, it's actually our biggest pod is just focusing on core development, on feature happiness, and also on our dev channel. So we have this channel of urgent posts where if something comes in and let's say your business, something's getting in your way of your business, you can't complete your report, whatever's going on, we have a developer constantly on call just to jump on those. So we have people devoted to that. And then we use our Candy board, which has been our new feature tracking software to really decide, hey, what happiness features are going on? For example, coming out soon, we have our top happiness feature, which is sort defect comments by most used. We're looking at Google reviews this quarter. We're looking at some quoting tools. So we have a lot of stuff going on there where we can say, hey, let's work on these happiness features. And then also in that pod, we have NextGen. It's part of the core product. We're developing that. And we'll work on these happiness features. We're also working on the app, the web editor, things like that. And we do have a limited number of mobile resources. So if you say hey, why are the core pod, why are they pushing out this happiness feature? NextGen still needs work. Just remember that there's only some devs that can work on NextGen. Some devs, who if we put them on it, would just end up being a much longer lift and they would just kind of be lost because they're not mobile developers. So different strokes.
And it's so like mobile development, one, it's hard to find, and two, it's so complex and sometimes very, very niche languages and applications. And so I want people to know just how complex this code is and the logic that goes into it. Obviously, it's easy to find people that can write features for desktop, that can add a widget or a calendar, like that stuff can get done quicker. And that's why you see these features get done quicker. But you said sort defects by most used, right? So
Yeah.
I just want to like put that feature over here for people. If you're just listening, I'm putting one hand up on one side and one hand up on the other side of the screen of you have these features that would save you time, that would make you happy as an inspector. And you're like, why hasn't Spectora built these? But then you're like, man, NextGen needs to get out there. I guess what you're trying to say is we can work on these concurrently, but NextGen, obviously a much heavier lift, requires a lot more complex dev work. But we're not neglecting one or the other. It's kind of like making progress on one while putting out these other things that some inspectors say is the most important thing to their business. So like, can you talk a little about that balance? Because it's hard. We internally, we debate it all the time of happiness versus progress on NextGen.
Yeah, of course. So we basically, the way we have it right now is we have Gabriel, who is this awesome mobile dev, who has a ton of experience on NextGen, on mobile Flutter, and he is just deep diving this product. So it's him and I'm getting feedback. We're talking about it every week. We have a large meeting every week where we discuss the progress on this with other developers, and we're just digging into, hey, what's going on here? What are the issues happening here? How can we fix this? Where are we making progress? Where aren't we making progress? And just really digging into what's actually happening here. So we're really focusing a ton. That's mostly just our mobile developers. That's me being very focused on this project that we're just super deeply looking at and really digging into. And then we also wanted to say, hey, we're moving on other fronts. Like, what can we do that's going to improve other people's lives? Because we have these other developers who can't do mobile Flutter. They just don't have that background. If we put them on it again, it would just be it would be months or years for them to learn that. So potentially would introduce new bugs. And so they can move on saying, hey, what other parts of the software need improvement? What other parts can be optimized while we still work on this project? We still drive this forward, and what other parts can really be used to make people's businesses better and give them more time back, give them more money, whatever we can do on our end. We're just really looking about saying, hey, what's going to make our inspectors' lives easier on both the NextGen front and then other features front. So it's a really, I think about it as a really like large thing. And then there's always bugs. We're just trying to create a complete feature about saying, hey, how can we look at this and give inspectors the best time on our platform? And your success is our success. So really the core pod is just focused on that.
Awesome. Yeah. And this is always a work in progress because this is the maturing of a tech organization, of a dev and product organization, is figuring out who's working on what and why and what's most important at any given time. I just want to touch on Canny real quick, because if inspectors hear this, this is our feature tracking software. And can you speak about how different it is compared to what we've tried in the past?
Yeah, of course. So the first thing to mention is just our product team that we talked about before. So as I said, last year, this time, it was me and James just looking at these feature requests. We're trying to look through our ridiculous bug backlog, which has since moved to a better ticketing software. We're just trying to get to the bottom of that. And since then, we've hired multiple amazing product managers with experience in different ways. And that's really allowed us to leverage data in a different way than we ever have before. We were able to create this use this software, which is called Canny. It's a really simple tool with a lot of options. It's just a very easily navigated and utilized tool to really get a grip on like what is our most requested feature, what are people really hoping for, what are people like lacking essentially. And then we're able to really utilize that data because we have more manpower, we have time to follow up on it, we have time to make sure that we're really listening there. So instead of it just kind of being like, hey, here's a board, you're screaming into a little bit of the void, we're able to really maintain that and use that. I know in the past there's been a few iterations of this, but this one, if you look at our board, I can show it later. It's basically all the top ones are like planned, in progress. We're really utilizing this to help drive our decisions.
That's so good to hear, because I know we've had our stumbles with Trello and an internal tool and another tool I can't even remember at this point. And this is the struggles of going through what we call the messy middle, right? Of growing as an organization, because the early users are like, why don't you guys just listen to me? I just told you what's wrong. Now there's 5 times or 10 times as many inspectors out there that all have sometimes unique problems. That's the hardest. That's what I still can't ever say enough, is that with mobile, there's always unique problems, and everyone, I think, falsely assumes everyone has the same problem as them. And that's easy to do. And I get why it's easy to think that way. But your job is so hard because you have to sift through all the BS and you have to sift through all the nuances of all these different people with feature requests or bugs and make sense of it. And that's the role. That's like part of the role of a project manager. So kudos to you on that. What else do you want to jump into?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to go back into like that next gen thing you just brought up with the inconsistency and stuff, just giving some context here on like what that looks like. So if you imagine that there's this mobile app and you have, let's say, 100 kinds of devices it can be opened on.
Yep.
And then within the mobile app, there's a bunch of different OS versions. There's a bunch of different softwares. There's just all these different things where someone with a different camera. So you have to imagine that there's just this infinite amount of possibilities and combinations where one person could be having this issue and no one else could be. And so it's a really interesting thing where we try to get to the bottom of, hey, why is this popping up? Where is this popping up? What scenarios is happening? Is it low service? Is it high service? So a lot of times we're just really digging in saying, hey, what is this? Because someone can say, hey, I have lag on my app. But for us, we have to decide like, hey, where is this lag happening? What are they doing on it? Is it in a certain area? Is it on a certain device? Can we get a video of it? Can we replicate this? So there's just so much that goes into our end of saying, hey, there's this issue and we know it's an issue and we know you're experiencing it and like it's frustrating and we're just trying to figure out how can we get to that. So if you get into us and we're asking you 10 million questions, it's not that we don't believe you or we want to blame it on you. It's just us deciding, hey, what is causing this and how can we isolate it on our end to make it work?
Oh, it's so well said. The number of variables, it makes everyone's head spin in terms of like when you just mentioned like 6 or 7 main ones, and those alone can cause misattribution.
And I want to give a shout out to our we have a really awesome QA team. So it's basically Courtney. So we have this wonderful person. Courtney goes through and QAs every single build of the app. She goes through an iOS, on Android. She tries all these situations. She tries low service. She can like switch between things. And she's like doing like, I think probably 10 inspections a week on NextGen.
Awesome.
So basically full inspections of just really hitting that. So we're trying to hit everything we can on our end, but without the feedback from inspectors, it's just going to be, there's so many variables. So stick with us. We promise we're testing everything.
We need real world usage. And yeah, we test it as much as we can, but at the end of the day, we don't have hundreds of inspections on the app done or photo gallery that's full like an inspector's is. So what can we expect going forward? If I'm an inspector saying, hey, that's all well and good, like what set my expectations? I know it's hard to pin down an exact date. I don't think no one should expect that an exact date, but where are we at in terms of just the next gen process and maybe expecting kind of widespread adoption of it?
Yeah, so we're right now, we have about 400-ish inspectors using it every day as their primary device.
Awesome.
So we have significant amount of users who are on it, who are using it daily, who are really just like liking this process. And then we definitely have some people who are having issues on it. So the interesting thing right now is we have a lot of people who are saying, wow, this is a great device, or a great app, it's way faster, it's way easier, we're saving time, we love this. And then we have some people saying, hey, I'm having these bugs, I'm having these issues. So basically we're trying to really look deeply at consistency. Where can we improve on? Where can we find this consistency? That said, stability has gone up way more since last quarter. We've had a 98% reduction in crashing.
Huge.
So we looked really deeply at that. We now have a 99.5% crash-free percentage in every session. So when you're in the app, only 0.05% of people are experiencing this actual crashing, and some people are not at all. So it's just like we're getting a lot closer, I think. We're just trying to pin down, hey, where are these last areas of improvement? Where can we make this better? What is happening to make this inconsistent? And how can we make this a good experience across the board? So anyone who picks it up can say, hey, this is such a better experience and moving faster, whatever that looks like for you.
And hopefully that gives confidence to anyone listening or watching this saying, wow, 400 people are using it. And most of them are having a good experience because yeah, if you jump on Facebook user group, you're going to only see the negative posts. Most people don't jump on to say, hey, did another inspection today, went smoothly. Like no one does that. So, I mean, occasionally shout out to the inspectors that do, but I think that's why we're doing this video in this episode, basically to like put some numbers to it, because emotion and text on a Facebook thread screen sways people. So
I also think one thing I want to mention here is just going back, like I think before we talked about how we can't set a date, and previously we've mentioned that we did set a date. So I think I've seen a lot of people talking about that where they're like, oh my gosh, you guys said you're going to get it out on December. What kind of happened there? And I wanted to kind of go into this and talk about what happened there and how it happened. So we set this date super early in the progress. We decided we're going to rebuild this app. We've never rebuilt an app that has our full feature set. We built an app that was like a bare bones app, and then we slowly add to it for years. So we went into this obviously being an organization who has experience here, but we've never rebuilt an app, especially on this infrastructure. So we internally set this date of like, hey, it'd be really great if we could hit that. And pretty quickly we realized, hey, this isn't going to happen. There's not going to be a time where we can make this consistent enough so inspectors can get on this and say, this is going to be a good experience. And we decided to pull back. The problem is we didn't communicate that across it, which is our fault. Our marketing team didn't know about that. So that date got out there and suddenly everyone was like, oh my gosh, this app isn't ready. How could you do this? And so we internally decided, hey, we're not going to do this. But because it hadn't been spread out, which is totally our fault throughout everyone, it got out there. So if you are looking at the app and saying, oh my gosh, it's a year late or it's X amount, eight months late, that's not necessarily the case. It's just we went into it without knowing, hey, what is this actual process going to look like to make sure it's consistent? And our main goal is just launching something that everyone can use and everyone enjoys. It's going to be something that's not 100% perfect. No tech ever is, but we're not going to launch something that's not ready to go out there. Our goals are to make your life easier and faster and better, not to add something more stressful out there. So I just think it's important to get that out there and communicate openly what happened.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. And Mike and I definitely have some culpability here because I think we're the ones that pushed for a date just so we could communicate it and put it out there. And in hindsight, that was the wrong decision. That was just flat out wrong for us to push for a deadline or a date that, and we didn't, what that ultimately wasn't realistic. I think we maybe had our lens on of the initial app, completely different beast, different technology, different timeline, different risk of the user base. And so we own that. We have to wear that and say, you know what, just because we miscalculated initially, like you said, doesn't mean we're 9 months later, a year late. Maybe if you look at it just on what we said, but we made an error on that. That was an error in judgment. So lessons learned.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think we're going forward, we're just much more careful with setting that, with communicating how we're communicating it, and just making sure we're really protecting that and protecting people from thinking, oh my gosh, my business is going to go over. I just tried this app. I had this issue and they're going to make me use it. That's not the case. And we promise that's never our intention. Because again, our incentive is just to make inspectors' businesses better. We have no other ulterior motive. We're paid by inspectors. That's all we want to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And getting a stable product out there that makes people do inspections quicker, ultimate goal. And some are already reporting that, which is amazing. Some are saying it's even faster than their initial process, which gives us a lot of validation.
We had a couple people say they're saving 30 plus minutes an inspection on this. So in our survey, we got that reported, which is insane. So people are saying that's really allowing them that.
Love that
speed, which is awesome.
Yeah, because just switching to Spectora alone, people say it saves them, hours sometimes. And so to add on to that, I think it's what we do. We compete with ourselves and try and innovate there. So
definitely.
Cool. What else we got, either looking back at the quarter or looking ahead, that you want to chat about?
Really, we're just working on, so we have a variety of features that you might have seen come out. Some of them are less sexy, like we had to, unfortunately, put tax on or institute tax on something. So you might be seeing that pop up on something. We just hit this level where we had to legally. Obviously, in our heart, we weren't like, our next happiness feature is tax.
Yeah.
Had that one come out.
Let me address that one real quick. So each state, we call this the Amazon effect. So over the years, less brick and mortar stores in your state have been collecting sales tax because everyone orders everything on Amazon nowadays. And states did not know how to handle that by having Amazon remit sales tax to the state. So states, including, I guarantee everyone's listening, your state had a drop in sales tax revenue. And so each state had to figure out how to get sales tax from digitally bought products like SaaS and software. And so Spectora and every other software in the world is now liable for sales tax, for collecting it from inspectors, their customers, and sending it to your states. Some states are a lot more lenient than others, and some are hardcore. And so, the funny line is, I think our CPA said, so yeah, tell all your customers to check with their state and go to their state representatives. It's like, no one's probably going to do that. Doesn't matter. Point is, sales tax has to be collected now from softwares, from Calendly, to Spectora to HubSpot to Zoho. They have to collect sales tax from you, a few bucks here and there. We send it to the states. They have to keep their revenues up to support building roads and keeping everyone's city and states running. So not fun, but something that was a heavy lift and we had to do.
Oh yeah. I think that's one of those it's not anti-happiness, but obviously no one's, hey, I'm so excited that I get to pay taxes now. Like that's not going to be
No one's excited.
Thrilling thing, including us, but it's something that we had to get done just to make sure we're compliant, we're operating legally. I think that's obviously no one's shut down because suddenly we're not paying taxes.
Right.
And then we also worked out one of our PMs, Josh, who just started recently, is working on recommended contractors. So you can now customize contractor names, which is really exciting. That might be, I don't think that's out to everyone yet. I think it's about 500 people, but there's going to be a lot more coming out with the ability to use recommended contractors differently. So we're really excited about that one.
That's day one feature request. That goes back years.
And then I think, we had released a couple things last quarter, like modifiers on add-ons. You can now add modifiers to say, hey, mileage is more if I'm driving for radon longer, if I'm doing something, if I'm in a larger house, things like that. You can now use modifiers. And then we also have initials on agreements, which is a legal requirement for companies in Canada, a lot of people in Alberta.
Yep.
So we're really excited to have that one, give people some compliance.
Couple specific users in Canada have been asking for this, and we got you.
We did it.
Awesome. Very cool. And so looking forward, I think people can expect, more, streamlined communication from us, more organization in terms of what pods are working on, more communication to just keep people in the loop. And I think everyone's in favor of that. And so, anything else you want to highlight or any other, closing thoughts?
No, I think we basically covered it, but I'm just really excited for what we're putting out there. I'm really excited for how we're maturing as an organization. Like, obviously we're still scrappy. We're still working through things. We're not this perfect, massive billion-dollar company, not saying billion-dollar companies are even perfect, but we're still like this small, homegrown, just like scrappy organization. But I'm really excited for what we're able to do now that we have these resources and these people who are so talented, so well-informed, so experienced, who can bring out these really cool processes and bring out these features. I'm just so excited, especially once we get over this hump of NextGen, about what our bandwidth is going to be and what we're going to be able to get out to you guys. I think it's going to be incredible.
Completely agree. I think you and the prod teams are finding that sweet spot of still moving quick and pushing features and having velocity that people expect of us, but managing risk of not pushing out something that hoses the whole platform, because we've done that before and that just sucks for everyone involved. And so, which is no one's fault. It's just, as an organization, we have to find that right cadence. And I know inspectors don't always love it. Some have expectations for us to be one way or the other, but we have to thread that needle to keep the platform stable while keeping people happy.
Yeah, going into that, we reduced our amount of rollbacks. If we sent out a feature and then we had to send it back, that was down by like 98% this past year. So
that's awesome. Big.
Yeah, it's huge. So we're definitely getting more stable. So I think looking at that and just like the level of success we've had with slowing that down in our developers, it's awesome. And I think it's just going to keep getting better, where you can expect just to have a very stable software that you don't have to worry going into every day.
Some of you OGs listening remember the days where we rolled back probably 95% of releases, and now 95% plus we do not roll back, which means it was stable, it was scoped appropriately, and good code put out. So
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Megan. This was awesome. Seriously. I hope everyone enjoys this. Let us know, right in the comments and everywhere we post this. Let us know if this was helpful, if you want more of this kind of stuff. Because I know you and I and Mike and others could talk product all day. So
yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to keep doing these.
Awesome. Sounds good. See you, everybody.